We finally got sight of what the Prime Minister wants to do on Brexit. What do you make of her plan?
Well, we're very concerned about particular aspects to it. I mean, we should just say that the document published, when you leave the EU, there are about 10,000 decisions you have to make. We set out our red lines at the beginning of this process. They still apply. I guess the big debate in the country is about customs union and single market, and we're particularly concerned about the customs union proposals because we think that her proposals require a technological solution that doesn't yet exist, and there's a sort of off-the-shelf, reliable plan for a different form of customs union that we're suggesting. So it's not good enough for us yet, and in one sense, particularly on the customs union, we probably agree with those ministers that resigned from her cabinet last week, that particular part of the plan is unworkable.
So let's just get really clear here. In its current form, will Labour back the Chequers deal?
Well, we've not decided our sort of voting position on the legislation that would enable it, but in its current form, it's not good enough. We want a jobs-first Brexit, and we don't think that Theresa May can guarantee the jobs of British workers with the plan as it stands now.
So at the minute, then, it looks as though Labour's going to form some kind of unholy alliance with Conservative Brexiteers to try and thwart this plan.
Well, we're not talking we obviously have nothing to do with Tory Brexiteers. They can decide whether they support the plan or not. But we've been very consistent. Keir Starmer, at the very beginning of this process, set out his 6 red lines. We've talked about, we're the ones that demanded a transitional arrangements because we needed to give business comfort that they could plan ahead, protecting jobs in the country, particularly in the manufacturing sector, which is important in the Midlands and the north of England. And we've been pretty consistent in that. And we don't think that the plan as set out by Theresa May so far will adhere to those red lines.
The thing is, though, it feels at the minute like we're standing on the precipice here. There's not much time left. There is a deal on the table. It might not be perfect. You might not agree with all of it, but at the moment, it feels like it's the only plan that the government currently has. What are the alternatives? Surely the responsible thing for the opposition to do is to put party politics aside and say, maybe this is the best we're going to get.
Believe me, Sophie, I do understand what you're saying there, and I worry about this all the time. When you represent a manufacturing heartland like I do in West Bromwich East, in the Midlands, you can literally feel the pressure. But we have to get the right deal, and we've said to the government, look, come listen to us.
Even if it means we might not get any deal at all.
Well,
That's
right
a big
now,
risk.
I mean, the problem we have with parliamentary arithmetic and the meltdown that's going on in the government at the moment with sort of key Brexiteers leaving the cabinet is it's sometimes very difficult to see whether Theresa May could get a majority within her own party for her own plan.
Well, she could if you backed her, though, couldn't she?
Well,
that's the point. That's why Labour has got such a responsibility here.
Well, we understand the responsibility and we understand the pressure that brings as well. But we're not negotiating. We're not the negotiating team. And we've been consistent for 2 years now. We've been saying, look, these are our concerns. These are our red lines. Please talk to us about this. We've got the interest of the country at heart as well, and we'll work with you if you listen to our arguments.
Because there are some who would look at the deals on the table and think there's not that much that separates the Chequers plan with what Labour's saying. Neither of you want, a hard border in Northern Ireland. Both of you say, that you want to follow EU regulations to try and make trade easier. Both of you say you want to end free movement of people, but you want easy access to the jobs market. What are those red lines? Because I'm a bit confused.
Well, look, we've said there's 10,000 decisions, but I mean, for example, for us, we've always said, every interview I've ever done, I've done it with you, I've done it wherever we've done it. We said we want a jobs-first Brexit. We want to protect the rights of British workers.
Yeah, but the government has said that as well.
But then you look at the appointment of Dominic Raab, a man who has said that he thinks our labour standards are too low and that Brexit gives us an opportunity to reduce the security that already insecure workers have got. We can't sign up to a plan that does that.
Yeah, but the plan, you're talking there about Dominic Raab's past conversations. I'm talking about the difference, the actual difference between the Chequers plan on the table and Labour's position on Brexit. And I'm a bit unclear what those massive red lines are that would risk a no-deal Brexit.
The key person appointed to a Brexiting team, the Brexit Secretary, Dominic Raab, has said he wants to undermine the limited securities that British...
When did he say that?
He said that since he's been a Member of Parliament.
But has he said it since he's been Brexit Secretary?
Frankly,
has he said that
doesn't matter. If you're looking to build confidence in the opposition in your plan, appointing Dominic Raab was a controversial act. Now, he might want to come to us and reassure us that British workers will be secure in their plan. But right now, we're very unconfident about his ability to deliver that.
So what you're saying is that you're prepared to risk a no-deal Brexit, you're prepared to look at your constituents in the face because of something that one member of the Cabinet has said since they've come in?
I know, I'm not saying that, Sophie. I'm saying that's one example of why we have very little confidence in Theresa May's plan and her ability to deliver it. And frankly, for you to say it's down to us to deliver a plan, when she can't even deliver her own cabinet, is a little bit rich. You know, what we want is a plan that puts jobs and businesses first, right? We've said it on the customs union, we've outlined our position on the single market, we've talked about how we want proper environmental standards, we want guarantees for human rights, we want guarantees for workers in the workplace. If the government can't even give us that, then please don't try and say it's down to us to deliver a half-baked plan that will leave millions of workers worse off, because we're not going to do it.
Now, it feels as though the Chequers plan's on the table, the prospect of no deal is something that's worrying a lot of people. There is potentially a third way, though, isn't there? A people's vote, a second referendum. Is Labour taking that off the table, or is it something that you can countenance in certain situations?
It's not our policy to have a people's vote. We've not called for it. It wasn't in our manifesto. But actually, as a result of last week, it seems to me that to take that off the table completely, when there might be a set of circumstances where Parliament cannot deliver a meaningful vote, would be a mistake. But we don't want that. We think of people's vote. We don't actually want that. What we want is what we've called for consistently for the last 2 years, which is a meaningful vote in Parliament. MPs to discuss the plan and the ability to suggest changes to that plan so that we can have comfort that there is a majority in our democratically elected House of Commons.
Would you prefer to see a people's vote over a no-deal scenario?
Yes, we would. No, well, over a no deal. Sorry, yeah. I thought over. Well, we need to see what we need to see the deal, right? And really, what we've said on this is how could you possibly close down your options when you've not actually even seen the deal completed in Europe? I mean, this is a plan that so far has had 9 days in existence. David Davis is making a speech in the House of Commons tomorrow. I'm told Boris Johnson is writing things next week. Theresa May's own plan might not last the fortnight. So I think for us to sort of try and close things down before we see how that plays out would be a mistake.
Some people could see that as a betrayal. People who voted Brexit in the referendum, they'll see that this is politicians just trying to stop it.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to reassure people that that's not what we want. We are leaving the EU. Labour MPs voted to trigger Article 50. This is all about the deal we get when we leave the EU. And that's important because there are millions of families out there who need us to get a good deal. They want, we need to give them comfort in the workplace, the idea that they can still have economic prosperity and that generations to come will be able to find good and fulfilling work.
OK, now let's move on to something that we might get a bit more consensus on, and that is the World Cup. Everyone's been enjoying the football recently. Of course, it's been one of those amazing kind of summer distractions from politics and Brexit. You want us to try and host the World Cup in 2030. Tell us about the plan. Yeah,
well, look, I've been driving my kids crazy because I remember I'm old enough to remember Italian '90 when we got through to the semi-finals, and the country was alive then. And actually, after a very difficult year, seeing the country united this last few weeks has been fantastic. And it seems to me, you look at Premier League football, which is the best in the world. You look at our lower league football, which is really well run. The Football Foundation has made investments in grassroots football. It's the national game. It can bring the country together. It can give us hope. We were disappointed in 2018 when we did the World Cup bid. Seems to me that we should be bidding for the World Cup 2030. And that's a few years off. And we don't know who's going to be in government in a few years' time. If we're in government, I hope it's one of the first things the Labour government does, which is work with our FA to try and put a World Cup bid together. If the Conservatives are still in government, then we'd like to work with them to make sure that a bid is successful.
The next country to host the World Cup is Qatar. Do you think that's the right place to be doing it?
Well, actually, there's obviously been very great concerns about the way the construction workers have been treated in Qatar, and the government of Qatar has acknowledged that they made some very bad mistakes in the early days of that. Thanks to our trade unions and actually the British Health and Safety Executive, I think they've put in a sort of piece of work that has actually helped deal with that. But in terms of the running of the World Cup, I think it looks like the planning of it is very, very good. They're obviously doing it in a winter, closer to the winter, which will sort of bring the temperatures down out in Qatar, will create havoc in all the sort of national leagues, which may cause some tension in the UK. But, you know, one would hope that it would be a very, very good World Cup, and that the squad we put out in the last one will be a bit more mature and battle ready to go even further than they did this time.